Welcome to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock, who is the co-founder of videosocials.net and of videointerviewpodcast.com. In every episode, Mark interviews business and organizational thought leaders who share their stories of how they inspire others by making a difference. You can find this show on videosocials.net and YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and almost any podcast platform of your choosing.
Welcome, and I'm delighted today to have as a guest Mosongo Moukwa. And Mosongo is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and business strategist. Drawing from his business strategy experience with Fortune 500 companies and his own entrepreneurial journey, he helps business owners grow into confident leaders, enjoy financial freedom, and focus on what matters most. Mosongo is been featured in a lot of different publications, including Forbes, International Business Times, Global Banking and Finance, if I can get the words out today, and the Chicago Tribune. Welcome, Mosongo. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm more than happy to. And Mosongo, I always like to start with kind of, what's your story? What's your what do you stand for in this world where there's a million different ways to to skin a cat, as it were, a million different ways to find success, and but what do you stand for?
Well, I mean, thank you, Mark. This is a great question because it allows me to share something that is deeply personal, perhaps, but something that drives everything I do.
Okay.
I've learned that. When we connect through our why we do what we do, through those values that shape us, I find that that's where real transformation begins. And because really at the end of the day, at our core, we are not just building businesses, but we are building lives. And
Yes.
And I believe every one of us, carries untapped potential, which is I like to tell the small business people, hidden gold within their business, waiting to be discovered. Huh? And I believe that when you start your business, not just to make a living, but to make a difference. That's what I believe. It's really to serve others through our unique value, to build something that gives you freedom and fulfillment. That's something I believed in. And I believe clarity, not complexity. Which is really the foundation of growth. Huh? And when you align your business with your purpose, then profit follows naturally. And so that's really what I believe, Mark.
Well, it's pretty astonishing. You really said a mouthful there. A couple of things that stood out for me that I use all the time, and that that I really aligns with my purpose and vision is I make a difference for those who make a difference in the world, and like you said, it's not just conducting business, it's actually helping people, and
Yeah.
we're helping people to another phrase that you used, and that's to transform.
Yeah.
So this isn't just doing something different, this isn't just modifying behavior, this is transforming who we be, who we're being in a given circumstance.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And so, yeah. So I'm. So one of the areas that we wanted to talk about today was you have a concept called how to engineer sustainable profits, and so I'd like for you to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. Yes. I actually. I mean, what most business owners they don't realize is that they are sitting on a pile of gold. So that's what it is here. There is just a very simple principle, which is the Pareto, this Italian fellow who came with 80-20 principle.
Yes.
What we essentially is that 80% of our revenue is only driven by 20% of what we do every day. So another way of looking at it is that if we focus on the 20% that drive the 80%, if you focus on that every day, that is it allows us to achieve a financial independence in less time. So, so that's what I discovered. But then I've also discovered that most business owners sometimes they don't know what the 20% is, huh? and they don't know even sometimes the 7% that make up that. But I also,
well, could you give a little bit of an example, perhaps? Maybe a client example, or
yes,
helps people identify what that 20% is.
The 20%. What is it made of? Well, the 20% is made of your products. It's made of your customers, and it made of all those activities that actually driving your business. So, who are your top customers? Who are those products that are contributing the most into your business? So those are really those 20%. So what I tell the small business people is that you need to find a way of identifying those. Now, right. So but that's not all, because within that 20%, then you have to focus onto a number of levels. You have to focus on leads. You have to focus on conversion. You have to focus on closing rate, client retention. Average sales per
right.
Dollar per sales, frequency of sales, and so on, and cost. And then what I've realized is that when you take those 7 levels, and if you look at just your business and you look at those leads and so on and so on, now if you increase only 10% of each one of those leads by 10% and so on and so on and so on, you're going to realize actually that now your revenue is tremendously improved, but your profitability turns out improved even much faster, and one can run the computation. Huh? So that's my thing. But the key is, Mark, is that you need to run all those elements together, not just focus on leads, not just focusing on frequency. If you focus on all of them at the same time, then you really have that revenue compounding effect. So in other words, you have to think about it like you have the first wave, leads, another wave, conversion. But when they align, those waves, then they produce a tide. So that's really the picture I can give there. So first start identifying the 20%. 20% of your customers, 20% of your products, 20% of those activities that generate most of your revenue or profit, and then prioritize them. But then 20% is not just enough. Now, what happened to the 80%? Well, the 80% try to reduce them or let them go. So, for example, what customers drain time and profit? Which products create work but not margin? Which task or meetings that could be automated, delegating, So which marketing channels give you noise but no results? So look at those patterns. If it consumes energy but does not generate value, then it belongs in that 80%. Because really, I think we are all we get so busy and we try to fix everything. But what I've learned is that when you focus on that 20% that drives your business forward, and you release the 80% that is holding back, then really that is a tremendous, because you reclaim in a way your time. You reclaim your time, you reclaim your profit, and you reclaim your sanity.
And you had mentioned 7 levers, and I know that we want to talk about one of those levers specifically as far as conversion.
Yes.
But just before we get to that, when you're building, you're focused on 100% because you don't know what's going to produce. I think what we as entrepreneurs get stuck into a pattern of, well, somebody's willing to write a check, and so I got to, I need the funds, so I'm going to take them on as a client, or I'm going to sell them product.
Mm-hmm.
But what ends up happening is I think that what you're alluding to is that as time goes by, you can start to refine, okay, who's the ideal client or who's the ideal customer, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that they're not arguing over price. they're not, they're in alignment with what they want, and what you can provide is in much better alignment than what others are. And you don't, before you're making a living, before you're in the black, as it were, you don't dump everybody that's not your best customer.
Yes.
But as you're gaining customers and clients, you're focusing on the people that are more in that ideal sphere, which I would say ultimately comes down to more like 5%. But really that step that I'm just expanding on what you're saying, because and you're saying right, is once your plate is full, once you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off, servicing those 80% that are eating up all of your time, energy, and focus, and frustration. And so as you don't stop bringing in new clients, but bring in new ones that are in that top 20% that are a really good fit. And when you bring them in, then let others fall by the wayside.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And you said it well. And let me just give you one personal failure story, if you will. So I once spent hours every week on a customer. I was in the chemical business, who bought almost nothing. But I was spending a lot of time there, sending them samples, reformulation, constant demand, but then almost zero revenue coming from them. Meanwhile, my best customers, they were waiting. That moment, I realized that if you treat the bottom 80% like you're treating the top 20%, your business will run into the ground. So that was one experience. And then the other one, which was almost a pricing breakthrough, which was that which it came from pricing, actually. So for years in my chemical company, I hesitated to raise price, and one of our top selling products. So we kept telling ourselves the market is too competitive, or customer will not pay for more. So we held the price steady, even though raw material costs were rising. Then one day I finally analyzed the data, and I realized that our top 20 customers, those who truly value our consistency, the quality, and the technical support, they were buying that product constantly, and not once they pushed back on the value. So I realized something important, that we were pricing based on fear, not on value. So then we began to test a modest price increase with our best customer. No big announcement, no emotion, just a clear, confident update. Not one single customer complaint, not one, And so that's really the power here. So, because the top customers actually, they generated most of our volume. And now, just listening. So they generated most of our volume. So that small price increase had actually outsized, impact. So our margin improved immediately. Cash flow stabilized, and we finally had breathing room to invest in better services and other production improvements. So that's so these are some of the lessons that I've learned, and I think many small business owners they should really employ those.
Well, and I realize that we need to move on, but I can't help but to add to that once we realize that we're a good fit for a smaller number of people than we realize. Mm-hmm. And if we're a good fit for them, we're able to be of service, make a bigger difference, and they value that more. Therefore, price becomes far less of a factor. Price most of the time is a factor if you're not differentiating yourself, if you're not really being of service in a better way or a different way than a competitor. Right. Yes. So if you're focused on the people that you jive with, the people that really are a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for them, value goes through the roof then for them. Right. Yes, and absolutely. Then prices becomes secondary to the value that they're getting. And you did mention earlier, pricing based on fear, which is pretty much where everybody starts.
Yes.
But we need to get out of that, and we need to realize that we need to deliver value, but we can't deliver value for everybody. We can provide greater value for a smaller number of people, and those people, if they're receiving the value, the price really takes a back seat. So, one of the things that we did want to touch on was conversion, right? Because I think there's a lot of all 7 levers are important, but this is one that I think a lot of people really get tripped up on.
Yes.
They put out content, they do ads, they do whatever it is that they do to attract some leads, but then they don't convert. And you have something called conversion formula, turning prospects into loyal customers. Yes. Can you expand on that a little bit and give us a bit of a breakdown of what that formula is?
Absolutely. First of all, the exciting is that most revenue actually is driven by the messaging. Really, not really the market, but really by the messaging. And I've been able to develop that formula, which I'll describe here shortly. But the first thing that we need to always remember is that the key to successful marketing is really to enter the conversation that is taking place in the mind of the prospect, and then to be able to address that. So the number question in the mind of a prospect is that they have their own pain, if you will, and they're looking for a solution. So that is something that goes into their mind all the time. The problem I cannot get rid of. What is the solution that I desperately need? And my own research led me to come up with this framework, which I call the conversion formula, which is that's a way of thinking, by focusing on customer needs. Number one, you have to captivate the customer. So you have to state the problem that the customer really is experiencing. Then you need to fascinate them. So with a promise of a solution that's actually going to address their problem. And then you need to educate them, provide some evidence, verbal or otherwise, that your product and your services are actually much, much superior to anything out there. And then you have to close. And so these are really the four elements there. Now so one example I can give you is that years ago I worked with a psychiatrist, and she was dealing with children who were difficult children. So parents they were having difficulty, and at that time, if we have gone to a website, all she was saying it was just some vague statement there, and she had a bunch of other offerings that she has there and so on, but nothing was really jumping out. So we worked with her. What we did with her is that we created a squeeze page, which is like a landing page, but really built specifically to capture visitor information, contact information, and so on. And then, so the messaging there was completely different. Is that if your child is giving you difficulty and something of that sort. So that was really the messaging. And then what has happened there is that before the changes, she was having 300 leads, maybe 1% conversion. When we changed the messaging, now her leads double. So she had like six conversion now. So what is really happening is that we tend to forget that in a way marketing is strategic. I think the issue that business owners they sometimes face is that we fail to understand the buyer journey. So the buyer goes through this information gathering, and buying is also emotional, right? It's not just
absolutely.
So that's why messaging is important, as much as we think that we are rational people, but the emotional side of the brain actually plays a great role.
Absolutely.
So the buyer goes through that journey. The buyer goes through the information gathering before purchasing, and research have shown that actually 1 to 3% of buyers they are in the market to buy at any moment in time. So which means that the 99 or 97%, they are really in a buyer journey. So they're going around looking what is out there, why should I buy? They even ask themselves why I should not buy. And I think all of us, we have gone through that, and then who should I buy it from? Now, what the conversion formula does, because by having that emotional connection there, it reduces those touch points. What I've seen in my own work and working with my client is that so today maybe is a 20 plus touch point, so those interactions there, and that way of connecting with the customer reduces those touch points by 5, because now that you have touched them somewhat emotionally. So that's really what you do there. And then in her case, she had initially only 1% conversion rate. By doing this, she had a 2%. And then what we subsequently did, so 60 people went in, as I'm trying to remember here, 60 people, 6 opted in. Then the question became, what do you do with the other 54? Well, the other 54, don't let them go, which is a mistake that many small business owners, they do. Put them, engage them, continue to engage them, put them in some kind of drip campaign where you are sending them valuable information, because all of a sudden it's as if they are now back into the funnel. So 54, and then maybe another 2, then the rest you put them back, then another 2, then another 2, another 2. And just by employing that technique, she was actually able to generate tremendous conversion just by applying those I wouldn't say simple, but those techniques.
And again, just reframing some of what you're saying to my thinking, the captivation is if you're not creating curiosity, right? And you're not going to get the attention. I mean, we're in an attention economy to a large extent, but not just talking about bells and whistles and fireworks going off trying to grab their eyeballs. I'm talking about actually attaching to what you're talking about, emotional. Because in the other thing that you kind of let off with is that you got to realize it's their problems, it's their concerns, it's their challenges, it's their they are the center of their own universe.
Yes.
Right. We're the center of our universe, but they're the center of their universe. Yes. We've got to go to where they are and speak to them where they are. And that's a mishmash of emotional problems, the physical problems themselves, what would typically be called an external problem, and then philosophy, right? Philosophical problems. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to, why can't this just be worked out, right? So in that world, I really like the fact that you've come at it with the captivate and fascinate, right? Because because what you're talking about is you're capturing attention because you're speaking directly to what they're up against, what they're feeling about it, and what it actually is. So that again comes back to, and then you're educating, and then at the end, as you talked about, even though yes, the conversion rates increase, but there's always going to be people that you've captivated them, you've fascinated them, but they aren't ready.
Yes. That's why you have to continue to nurture.
Right. So, why do all that work and then not stay in touch with something, again, that's valuable, that reminds them on a regular basis, because they're going through their life. They're not concerned about you or what you're doing. So you need to show up. And the best way to show up, I always feel like, is with email, but it may be, doing podcasts. It may be having them subscribe to a YouTube channel. And I will take that opportunity just because we're sponsored by our service called videosocials.net. And Video Socials is, simply put, a group of individuals that get together on a weekly basis. We have multiple meetings a week and with different groups. and we take turns recording our video content and learning these lessons from each other and giving each other feedback and getting comfortable in front of the camera and letting go of the awkwardness that comes about when you haven't done it a lot, etc. So people getting together rather than staring into the abyss of this inanimate object called a camera, and being able to have a conversation with an audience in which we can learn to captivate and fascinate and educate, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because the one word that well, two words that come to mind is that you and I learned this from Donald Miller with StoryBrand 2.0, and that was, our job is to display empathy and authority, right? So empathy is, we understand where you are, we understand what you're up against, we understand how that feels, etc. And so that allows you to enter into their psychological space to, oh, this is a real human being that understands what I'm up against and what I'm going through. And then the authority is just basically showing competence, right? Yes. And that competence is through reviews, testimonials, as well as your own content that you're creating to educate, because they see that, oh, they really know what they're talking about. Yeah, that, but they can't see all that until they know that you get what they're up against. Right. Yes, so
yes, absolutely. And Mark, if I may, I wanted to give maybe for the listener out there also, so they could connect. If you take, for example, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A says, we are in the people business, not the chicken business. Now, Chick-fil-A does not compete on chicken sandwiches. They compete on story, service, and experience. So their message speaks directly to the internal conversation that customer they are having, because they want to feel value, and they want to be treated well. They want a place that feels like actually cares. So that's why we see those people there meeting us there on the driveway and so on. They call their employees team members. They train their hospitality. Their signature phrase is "my pleasure." So
my pleasure.
So I began
3 years. It took them took 3 years of an internal marketing campaign to implement that phrase, because it's so embedded for people to say, "You're welcome." And to mentally shift their entire staff, it took them 3 years. But it's a pivotal phrase.
Absolutely. And for the small business owner, the lesson is that your real differentiation is really the product, is the experience and the story behind it, So when you articulate that story clearly and you deliver it consistently, then you are really in the game.
Right. We're going to run out of time long before we cover all the stuff that we'd like to cover. I did want to do one final question for you, and that you have a phrase that how to win customers before they buy. And can we expand on that just for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, what I meant by that is that you need to it's a bit a continuation of what we are saying here. You need to craft that signature message for that conversation and value, because really it's what I was referring to. That's how you communicate your unique value, your compelling message. I did some work years ago with this cosmetic surgeon. A message was get a body that will create envy. That was the message. She had zero conversion rate, but then when we changed it, we said, get the body for the young mothers, get the body you had before you had children. Now people began now to being pulled in. So a compelling message which can make you memorable, that build trust, that could leverage that narrative. So that's what I mean by that. So that will ultimately define your position of market dominance and your compelling offer. So just a messaging can
Right.
can really have a difference. So that's the example I thought I would share with you there.
Absolutely. And again, kind of tying in, I think that's a great way to wrap up, because again, you're relaying to them your empathy, your understanding for where they're at and what they're up against, so that you're connecting not only with their physical, external problem, issue, concern, but you're tapping into how they feel about it, and how they would feel about it if they worked with you and your plan to get to the other side and to tackle that, and so on. So really wonderful to have you on today. There's going to be links in the show notes, folks, but it's Mosongo Moukwa .coach is the website. I'm not going to spell everything out, folks. There'll be links below. And also for LinkedIn, for Facebook, for X, and for Insta. And then finally, you had a free offer, which is a course, and for the first 7 people, I think that what you wanted to make available. The first 7 people who downloaded your free course, you would give them a one-on-one session. Which is really, really generous for you. And of course, we'll have a link and
I want for them to mention that they came from your show, so that I know they came from your show. Yes.
Okay. And can you give us a 30-second soundbite of what they're going to get out of that course?
Yes. So first of all, go there, download that free resource, and then we're going to have a one-on-one session, 60 minutes. During the 60 minutes, I'm going to share with them a number of strategies that will allow them to uncover, to find additional revenue for the business. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're also going to take a couple of them, apply that specifically to their business, so that they can really get the right insight, and then generate some kind of a roadmap that they could then take for themselves. So that's really what that session is all about. It's just a way for me to thank you for having me on your show.
Well, that's very generous, and folks do take advantage of it, and because if 60 minutes and a small course could make some sort of a difference, it's certainly well worth your time. Mosongo, thank you so much. Really enjoyed
having me on your show. A great conversation. I think probably you and I could have spoken for much, much longer, but I know
absolutely.
time is limited. But I enjoyed it so much, and I appreciate your kindness for having me on your show. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You've been listening to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock. Your positive comments, likes, and most importantly, your sharing of this show with others is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the Inspiring Business Podcast on whatever platform you prefer. You can catch prior episodes on videosocials.net and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the major podcast platforms.